hear that. So a very warm welcome to the chat of OurNews tonight. I'm your host, Cwayita Zweni. Tonight we are speaking to a group of young people from the Eastern Cape. And amongst those young people, we are connecting to Asanda Fongqo. Some of us from Ebofolo would know about him. We are also connecting to Mr. Collin Heshula and Thulani Dasa. Good evening, gentlemen.
Welcome. Good evening, Cwayita, and the listeners at home.
Good evening, Cwayita, and good evening, everyone at home.
We seem to be having a few technical glitches there, but in tonight's show, we will be dealing with mostly what we call the Youth Month, which is the month of June, and what role the youth can play in the state of the country or even in the state of the economy that we are in at the moment. So to start our show, sizaqala kuButhulani. Buthulani, could you please tell us of the role that you would like or the role that you feel the youth could be playing, and then we're gonna go over to Asanda after you've done.
Okay, thank you very much, Cwayita. Thulani has already mentioned. I believe young people, they need to play a crucial role in building this country and also in ensuring that they are active citizens within their communities. Because you'll find that in the past 27 years, there's nothing much that the youth can claim. Because if you look at youth unemployment, it's high and it's rising each and every day. But now you'll find that most of the young people are sitting on the sidelines and blaming government and blaming the leaders, of which that's the role that they need to assume in bringing the change that they want to see in their own communities and also in the entire country. I'm making this plea to young people who are viewing us tonight to get involved in their communities, ensure that they become positive role models. We have seen in the past femicide and women abuse on the rise, and also continue to see the murder of young women and children, of which most of those crimes are perpetuated by young men. Those young men need to stand up now and say enough is enough. No young women will ever again lose their soul at the hands of men. We need to have responsible young men that can own their own future and become role models in our society. Thank you.
Good evening, Cwayita. Yeah, I think maybe I should start with a disclaimer that I'm here as Asanda Fongqo, and I'm not affiliated to any organization. I see my Leonard friend is well branded today in Cape Town, Thulani. That's just on a lighter note. I think Thulani has said a lot of what needs to be said in that question, but I just want to bring in a different dimension to say, if you don't get the basics right as a young person, then you won't be able to achieve what Thulani has alluded to. So I think the first thing we need to do, we need to tell young people is that you first need to be a responsible family member within your own family and be a leader in your own block. I think that's where the fundamentals start. And then you can extend that to the community where you get involved in key projects, as Thulani has said, that are meant for social development and social cohesion. So the most important thing here is that we can't sit back and fold our arms and wait for things to happen, particularly when we look in the context of Fort Beaufort, where we came from. I mean, I use the harsh phrase to say Fort Beaufort has gone to the dogs. And that is figurative and actually literal. Because every time I go home, I'm a migrant worker, but every time I go home, the situation is worse and worse. Fort Beaufort is deteriorating. So we can't fold arms as young people and wait for things to happen while our hometown is declining. So I think I will echo the sentiments of Thulani to say we need to stand up ourselves and drive programs that will rescue the current situation.
We quickly welcome Collin. But Collin.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay, thank you guys. I see none of you wished me a happy birthday. Anyways, it's my birthday today, yeah?
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, thank you guys. I think the first point of departure, I think we honestly need to look into, when you take the two towns, whenever I address such issues, I like making an example of Ellis as well as for Beaufort. One question I always pose, is the youth of this town, are they purpose-driven? Are they hungry? Do they want to participate? Do they want the change? When you look at those 3 or 4 critical issues, is it you find that a lot of foreign guys, whether be from outside the country or outside these two towns, there's always participation, and novel ideas which come through. And then when these guys come and deploy those same ideas into our towns, we tend to be angry that these guys don't actually belong here. They don't have a right to do that. But it's a democratic country. Everyone's got a right to participate and do whatever they want in any society within South Africa. But I always say, as a youth of Ellis and for Beaufort, we've actually failed, and it starts with me. I've been running a business, an IT company, but I don't get, that just that the guys are hungry. The guys, there's a lot of business forums. I've been trying to engage. I've been trying to have colloquials with, but it's just not there. I'm sorry, but it's just not there. Which goes back to the question. I think one of the speakers mentioned. That's why you have a look at these two towns. 90% of businesses within these two towns, it's not youth owned. So there's no participation. I think where we really need to start is that, we need to point the question back to us, come up with strategies that's going to make all the youth within Adelaide, Fort Beaufort, Middle Drift, and even in Ellis hungry to participate in such, and then we can take it from there. Thank you. I think that's my starting point, guys.
Like Andy Cole and Monakali in any way, in terms of the economy, in terms of contributing to the economy, in terms of even contributing socially. Because Ndihleli Payana and Ndiphelele Payana, there's nothing else there, there's nothing for me to do. So can you guys tell me, Uba, as umntana osuke elalini, osuke farmer, what role as umntana ohlala as farmer can I play? But Thulani? Okay, but Thulani, we seem to have lost him a bit there. But Asanda, sawusele siqala
ngapha. Anyway, I think Cwayita umbuzo obaluleke kakhulu because you can't really make a difference if you don't have access to information or access to resources. But I think we are fortunate enough to have technology that bridges that gap of being in a remote area and having access to information. So maybe at some point, maybe not today, we need to move away from that excuse that they're isolated and the courses doing and start being proactive to search for information. There's an example that I made with a friend of mine on a mistake that I made after the passé metric some many years ago without giving away my age. I didn't go to university because I thought I needed to pay the entire fees that were required at the time. I only learned after I completed the gap year that there is something called TEPSA or NSFAS, and then I can be able to study. So I'm using this example because I probably didn't do enough in terms of searching relevant information that would have removed me from those chains of poverty at the time. So I don't want us to, I'm not saying that's what you say, Cway, but anfuni ati umdu because usezilalini okanye usequgesi abe ne-excuse yoba akazukwenza efforts to access information so that abe akwazi ukuparticipate kwezi zinto. Iqugesi ayikho kude down eBhofolo. Down eBhofolo zikhona i-internet cafes ezikhoyo. I mean, the fourth industrial revolution has made izinto much easier now to access information. So ningabakhuthaza ngamafutshane abantwana abakwi-remote areas to say, take the initiative and go and look for information so that you can participate and be part of the solution.
Thank you so much, Asanda. But Collin, would you like to put in a word there?
Yeah, I think I partially agree with you, Asanda, you know, but obviously, given where I don't agree with him, you know, taking into consideration Umdana versus Lalim, you know, most probably got his last 30 rand.
Okay, we seem to be losing you a little bit there.
The choice is going to travel to town for information, but you know, to make it. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. You take an example of Amanaman Jengo, you know, Opotsisan Yebulan and how they started, you know, their business empires in Amani. You know, it's all, if the government doesn't come to you, you go to the government, you know. So I think with, as opportunities, the and work within government, even within local municipalities and everywhere, it's all a matter of, you know, take your proposal, speak to whoever you want to speak to, you know, go and pitch a condo, sugar pies lali, nukwelenge 10 1 go to Maspala, Mbongongozo, you know, that, you know, with money, I've got this idea, A, B, C, and T, you know, and then they can avail those resources, you know, at least was of my man. You know, when I started the first IT company within Maspala, it wasn't easy, you know, but, you know, I pitched the business, and luckily, the guys who came through, you know, now Baba Progressive, who actually saw that, you know, the idea is it's viable, you know. And, you know, so I think it's all about participation, you know, guys. You know, Magaye, global Jukoy, or the local businessmen Okoyo within the area Shalagoy, you know, but Pitbani, Mamubani, that kind of got this APC and TITA, you know, it starts up, you know. So, and then we can take it forward because, you know, at the rate, I mean, right now we all know the problem in the, you know, can you imagine? Nana says Lalim, you know. So that's why I'm saying, you know, I think we really need to look into, you know, seeing a band of other businesses, you know, especially as young guys, but how we present and how we conduct ourselves in our businesses around the Manana Tina Kala, are we accessible? Without Tina Lambda in IT like born, who was now goes a go attitude, you know, I've got this idea, while I am also advising, you know. So I think it starts there, good excellent. let's be viable, let's be accessible, guys. Let's help the up and coming generation. Ukuthi bakwazi, you know, it starts with us, and then from there on, I think Yonginto, we are the path. You know, they can't jump, you know, go and knock Kumaspala, telling them there's technical payana or CSD, Obama community tax clearance or whatever. It starts up area, you know, ask around, do your research, go to your community library by icon, you know. Cela usebenzisa i-laptop or a phone, you put your call up around, you know. So that's the starting point, you know, without having to travel. But anyways, it's all up to Tina, you know. If we are accessible, then Bazauza. But if you're not, unfortunately, among to the young up and coming youth, then they won't be knocking on doors with their solid ideas.
Okay. Enkosi kakhulu bhuti.
But
Usulahlekile ke
ndicela ukongeza man.
Definitely.
Yeah, uxolo man. I feel I respect input Collin kakhulu, and I'm not gonna get into a debate now. But I think if you highlight nje ba zikhona case studies zabantu abanyathelele indlela phambi kwethu who even came from more terrible conditions. So I think we need to locate those more role models and even go on a research spree to find out what is it that they did right. What I'm trying to say, I'm not saying I understand the meko yabantu abahlala kwezaa ndawo, because I came from that myself. But I think we don't really have control over a situation as fikele kuyo, but we have control of what we do about that. So that's the message that we need to drive to abantwana bakwezi areas with scattered resources, to say the environment ufikele kuyo does not mean that you can't break the barriers. You just need to find out how. There are people who've done it before you. It's important to find those stories and learn from them. That's just what I wanted to add. It was.
And in terms of providing leeway or even providing a way forward to ulutsha lwethu, what kind of programs do you guys think we can maybe try and do so that we can incorporate ulutsha into a lot of programs ezenzekayo ekuhlaleni? Because you know, umzekelo ngoku, I know ke Asanda told us as a disclaimer yakhe ekuqaleni, but ngoku kuzawuba local government elections, so it's tough out there. A lot of people might have seen it's tough out there. So endaweni yokusebenzisa abantu batsha ekubeni koba mabomapha bayotshisa amatayara, mabomapha bayothukubani, mabomapha bayothini, what can we do in order to make sure that ulutsha lwethu they bring about change even kwi-societies zethu? Because into ebuhlungu is that ulutsha is just there to be used by the elder people who have already seen all these things happening, and mhlawumbi they don't see anything beyond into yoba lo mntana ngomso xa ndisithi makathukise namhlanje ngomso uzawuba yintoni. So what kind of programs can we do or initiate thina as ulutsha that is much more accessible to aba bantu batsha, okanye even ulutsha that is much more clued up a bit? Good, Asanda?
I'm sorry man, ingathi ndiye ndaqhawuka pha earlier on. Ndiyavakala?
Yes, uyavakala bhuti.
Okay, what I was going to say, kule nto Asanda ndixinisa kuyo, some of us come from that background. I remember when I was still at tennis, I used to watch those parliamentary programs. Little did I later know what I'll be sitting in parliament and doing all the things that I do currently today. It was that passion and having a band. We used to with the late to look on his soul, rest in peace. No Asanda, Manyamaji, Spastela, class phone. Hey, Bani, Google up plus
Collin, uyaqhawuka kancinci ke, I am not
sure.
Sorry, I'm back online then.
those and all that when we and then
yes, we have Vagala, but we are going to take a short ad break so that we can fix our technical glitch. We seem to be having people going overboard.
Yeah. We
have Vagala, but we're going to take an ad break.
Okay.
Yeah guys, yeah siphila ke kuloma xesha nzima ya amaxesha eCovid. And umongameli usanda kubhengeza kuba siku level 1 and ukufika kwethu ku level 1 akuthethi ukuba iCovid-19 okanye icorona iphelile, isaphakathi kwethu sisaphila nayo. Ithi loo nto leyo it's not business as usual nangoku. Kusafuneka silandele imiqathango kule mihla ke siphila kuyo. I-live streaming yemincwabo ndiyacinga nami uba yenye yezinto ekumeleyo ukuba wonke umntu okanye wonke ubani abuya yenza. Iyanceda ke kwelinye icala uba ufuna ukuthoba iindleko zomngcwabo. Ukunwenwa kwe-COVID ke ukubalula nje izinto ezimbalwa ke phakathi kwezinye. Kodwa ke don't despair, ungawari, because ke abakwa OurNews online bayaqinisekisa ukuba baniphathela ke le nkonzo, and ke eyona nto baqinisekisa ngayo ukuba yinkonzo le efikelelekayo, kodwa iyafikeleleka. Yes, ungayibona wena ufikeleleka ucinga baza kunika nje baza kugqwagqwa. Iyafikeleleka kodwa ke ikwinqanaba eliphezulu kakhulu. Amaxabiso abo aqala kancinci from 2,450 qha. 2,450 qha. Fikelela kulula guys.
Now warm welcome back to the chat of OurNews. In the last 5 minutes of the show, we have unfortunately lost Thulani again on the show. But Ben, there was a question here. Sorry, but Collin, to cut you off there, but because of it, I move it to the next question that I had already asked about how do we make programs? What sort of programs can we make in order to incorporate Ulucha into providing a leeway in our societies as well as the economy, because I feel like the economy is the most important thing because Sipilangai. So, with Collin, if Unvile, could you start by answering the question and provide your closing statement as well?
Okay, guys, I think, is, what we need to do, we need to come up with, proper business models, which will suit, the areas it is, Let's have those business seminars, it doesn't have to be in those formal. Business ideas, whether be on a weekend or P. Let's have this on, let's share ideas amongst the communities. It doesn't have to be a meeting solely in your town or wherever, wherever we gather, guys, even if it's over social issues, but masali in Sonke, have regular business seminars, and that's the only way we're going to channel it back, advise Lucha on, on new business ideas, whether Umdufunu Beach or whatever, I remember there's a guy, Ifunukali Kawash, Ape Alice, he had that idea, I think, for the past 2 or 3 years, but fortunately, I implemented on, whilst the corner. You could have helped, but when there's no platform and there's no accessibility, then the thing is up is the point of
Yes, thanks, Cwayita. I think mna xa ndisho ngathela ndingathi, apart from it disclaimer lebe ndiyenze kuqala, I think it's our responsibility as young people to participate in these social formations. Umzekelo, we must participate in elections. Funeke sibe khona ekudecide uba ngubani osilawulayo, so that ukuba kasilawuli kakuhle sikwazi umkhupha. That's the first thing. We need to exercise that. There are many elders who fought so hard for the right to elect leadership to vote. So we should never undermine or underestimate the value of that. That's the first thing. I think Enyindeba is that, as we said before, we need to take initiatives, as Collin is saying, to empower ourselves, because not every one of us is going to be an employee, or not every one of us is going to be a graduate. We need to identify our strong points and polish those, rather than just waiting for everything to be delivered. I don't think the cake is enough for all of us, but we need to bake our own cake in some instances. So we are now responsible for where this country is going, and we need to realize that. And the other thing I want to add, I think we need to audit our lifestyles as Abandabacha, because without judging how people live their lives, when I go home, for instance, and I see Abandindlela abaphila ngayo, it's like we're not investing into the future, we're living for today. So you don't see bale lifestyle yethu izawubasaphi abantu abazemva kwethu okanye izawusaphi thina. So I think we need to sit back and do some introspection. Sijonge uba le ndlela siphila ngayo now, is it sustainable? Is it building better futures for the next generations to come? Currently, I don't think so. So I think we need to fix that by moving away from these social ills. And but when you do it excessively to the point that it destroys the future, then it becomes a cancer. So if we address those things, I think we can move towards the right direction. Engos.
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. Engosini for coming through to us this evening. We do appreciate you guys, and we do hope Abandabacha bavile on ways to move forward. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the show, and this was the chat of OurNews. Please look out for the poster for next week, Tuesday. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.